Hello, this is a video for the residents of Cary, North Carolina. It's me, Matthew Cordon, again. I was a Libertarian who ran for office in the 2024 NC House election for our area, and now I'm back to tell you about two candidates you get to choose between for this 2025 election in District C if you happen to live in the region of Cary where I live. Likewise, I'm going to talk very little about the at-large election as well, since it's between a Democrat and a Republican likewise, and perhaps if you're like me, you enjoy hearing as much as you can about a subject when it comes to voting for people, and perhaps even like hearing from an independent who chooses to evaluate them by their policies and their characteristics and such. With that said, this video is going to be rather long. It's a very important subject because we need to be informed voters. It's something that the founding fathers spoke about quite a lot. As much as they talked about liberty, they talked about educating ourselves. It kept them up at night, the thought that people would go and vote and not be very well educated. So I feel that I'm doing a service to my country. With that said, I want to kind of double down on the fact that again, this is about you and what you need to know. It's about the facts and then logically sound subjective take that comes away from the facts that I've experienced, and telling you about my experience, but only insofar as it would help you to know more. So as such, I'm asking that you put aside your feelings for me and use this opportunity to just kind of evaluate the things I have to say on their own merits. I challenge you to see if maybe you can look past the fact that I'm libertarian and to see if there's any real value in the opinions and the facts that I'm bringing to you, of which if you have any doubt, you can ask me in private and I can give you more information, or even in the comments, proving that I did these things I said I did and explaining further like why I came to my conclusions. Lastly, you will see perhaps the time of day, perhaps my position change throughout the video because I'm going to be recording this in chunks, probably going to be editing out the awkwardness. I'm actually not going off of a script this time. If I will toot my own horn about something, it's probably I finally feel like I got the hang of it, that I can record quite well a very long video like this and not have to read off of a script. If you don't know, that's actually really hard to do. Very quickly, I'd like to address what I've been up to the last, it's been almost a year since you've last seen a video from me. I, as you might recall, went into trying to make my own Freedom Social Club, a little bit of a book club, a little bit of other things like activism. And I was hard at work at planning, preparing that, which takes a lot of work for just one person. When my financial situation had been bad and had gotten significantly worse each month, so I made the executive decision to put that aside and to try to find some other activity that could be beneficial to the world at large and for the liberty movement. And so I was in the background of politics, but I wasn't really doing much of politics at all. I was really just kind of focusing on trying to find a new job. But then Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and something about that really spoke to my heart. As if it made me realize I was making a mistake. That there were, I think I even said this in my last video, there are so few libertarians who run for office. That 2024 was a record low, in recent history, that is. And yet, I really can't say, no matter how I look at it, that there's any less of a need for us to be speaking out, giving people a third way of looking at politics and looking at solutions and problems. Truly, if it's true that the more voices in politics there are, the better it is for a lot of us. And especially as somebody who believes that liberty is so important right now, I felt bringing my expertise and my zeal to the table was very valuable. Seeing Charlie Kirk's example of being a peaceful rhetorician, I felt that I too had to speak out and to try to be a light in this world, in all kinds of ways. My views, my authority on these subjects. And so with that, the 2025 local elections rolled around and I started paying greater attention to them. After the assassination, I really doubled down on the feeling that I need to be paying close attention to who are the candidates and what do they stand for. And so I interviewed some of the candidates, and I made a point of hearing them speak and to learn more about them, the four. So as I said, there is two candidates running against each other for the at-large position, a Democrat and a Republican. The Democrat being Miss Johnson, and then the Republican being Miss Eastman, who, if you read about her, I think her name would be better off as Miss Westman, because she's traveled all around the country throughout her lifetime and been around the world, but was raised in California. In fact, she was raised a military brat. She lived very close to a Air Force base, and then became a enlisted person after she got her degree. Then, at some point in the Middle Eastern 2000 wars, when she served in Afghanistan, she elected to stay a long time, and then she got a degree that prepared her in a different state. Prepared her to be an intelligence member within the military. So she returned to a military life, if I understand correctly, and then became a civilian recently, in which she chose to live in Cary purely off of strategic reasons. But then, in the very brief time that she's lived here, fell in love with the community, has had a kid of her own, and has gotten involved a little bit with the community, having a gardening club and doing other small things like that. She was also in a business development program for the city of Cary, which has the government basically get involved with people's businesses and tell them how to think and what to do, if I understand correctly. Because again, I'm not a subject matter expert on either one of the at-large candidates, because the subject of the video is actually the other two candidates, which I'm getting to in a moment. But the takeaway that I have from reading about her, and she has a lot on her website, which I appreciate, is that she, in the way of a military brat, very much feels like somebody who is an outsider to civilian culture to a degree that really worries me. She seems like somebody who is very world-focused rather than city-focused. Has kind of lived a nomadic life, could choose to leave at any point, in the way that it's a lot easier to uproot your family when you only have one kid, as opposed to some candidates I've seen who have, say, like 3 or 4. And so she seems like a big government kind of indifferent towards freedom kind of person. Honestly, a very much like a neocon, I could not find a single libertarian strain in her background whatsoever, except for the fact that she technically had a master's degree that nominally includes the words and human rights in the title, but from the description of the degree itself did not sound at all like it actually involved much human rights, but that was kind of more of a kind of politically correct nicety applied to what is a FBI degree. I feel the need to explain to libertarians who often are very friendly towards voting for Republicans, like, why this is very much not the kind of Republican you want to be voting for. Because literally, like, I can go down the list. For psychological reasons, she might be a perfectionist, which comes a lot with military veterans. She might not be emotionally stable, which often comes, unfortunately, with people with a long military service. And I say that with much respect and reverence, because after all, I know how much they give and what how good their heart is for wanting to serve their country. And likewise, that I have a brother-in-law who is a service member, and I appreciate what he does. But I also know that people who are in the military often have a hard time seeing clearly the reasons to criticize the government. And so I'm deeply disappointed with her as a candidate, that she doesn't seem to represent Cary. She doesn't seem to be a great person for the job. And frankly, she might, by her self-obsessed kind of narcissism, seems like the type who wants to kind of climb the ladder of politics and more than make a living doing it, but like be a kind of a grifter who earns a lot of money in politics, kind of rising through like, now it's the city, but very soon she'll abandon that to then be a state lawmaker you watch, to try to be like a House of Representative. Just does not seem like the kind of person who has our best interest at heart, honestly, whether she knows it or not. And then her opponent, less to say because it's easy to dismiss a Democrat, frankly, from what we know about typical Democrats. Ms. Johnson is very much into a bad kind of environmentalism, a very different kind of environmentalism than what I'm into, whereas I'm very hesitant to kind of spend money on things like EV stations, and she's willing to do such things too. She's very much kind of forcing green initiatives on everyone, and especially, publicly owned assets to the city, of course. Kind of like really forcing it into schools, if I had to guess. She talks a lot about kind of blindly just like hardcore supporting solar energy, but then, which makes a little more sense than most green initiatives in our region, because wind farm wouldn't make any sense here. She, more importantly than that though, she seems like somebody who is not mature enough to handle lawmaking or a civil life, because she openly says things that sound like kind of self-doubt, that seem to me very unprofessional in the way it's worded. But on the other hand, this is kind of a backhanded compliment. I can kind of appreciate that she seems like she actually comes from the culture around here, that she just seems like an ordinary person, in contrast to the reputation that Miss Eastman wants to have of being kind of a larger-than-life person who wins all these awards and is so great and has this big, important book that you should read. And so with that in mind, I'm really disappointed by each one. They're kind of on extreme ends of the spectrum of the kind of people that you don't want running your government. And so my best advice at the moment is for you all to just not vote for either person. Or if you feel like being very kind, you have my permission to write in my name. And I would certainly, day one, from the moment that I win the election, would take very seriously kind of looking into what kind of libertarian or just plain rational things need to happen at the city level. Applying a lot of what I've learned from doing a lot of research into the different candidates and what they perceive to be the problems and were told to be the problems by residents and their proposed solutions, kind of picking the best of them from all four people, kind of pulling that all together and using my not so much years of experience in Cary, to be fair, but years of experience in the Raleigh area to kind of draw from that and to be a good civil servant for you all. So yeah, I honestly, although it wasn't really my intention to announce such a thing, but nevertheless, if you wanted to write my name in, I can't disagree with the notion. I'm probably, out of the three people, the best person to vote for, that your vote would be the least wasted if voted for me, because you'd be electing somebody that you can actually have faith in to do a good job and to have the proper values that the founding fathers or anyone who's really intellectual for that matter can appreciate.